All right, and we are once again live
Woo!
for another discussion. We're actually kind of getting a little consistent now. What's up with that?
Right.
Yeah.
More free time on the weekends.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, COVID, once again.
Yeah. For bringing us together.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, we're not supposed to. Okay.
Yeah, we're like right on top of each other right now.
No, 6 feet apart,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. Alright, so this week, Jose.
Yeah, we are delving deep into the woods to watch The Ritual. Yet again, another movie that caught me off guard because I never heard of it again.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was so intense, to be perfectly honest. It started off nice and smooth. It felt like it was going to go in a completely different direction from what I initially thought.
Good.
Let's just jump right into it, right? So the four guys are going around to the pub trying to make up their mind in relation to where they're going to go, just for their bro out hangout, essentially. They're trying to rekindle old connections as friends, it seems like. Their Luke and their friend, man,
Rob.
yeah, Rob, yeah, can essentially go into a liquor store where a holdup is currently occurring, and Rob gets unfortunately beat down and killed as a result of, personally, a lot of sympathy for Luke, because for nothing. He dies for absolutely nothing. He dies as a result of desiring to keep his wedding band, which I personally find is probably the most stupid reason to die. I can only imagine what it must have been like having to go over to his wife and be like, why did he die?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hannah made the comment,
During the movie that, I could not imagine being told my husband died because he wouldn't give up his
the
wedding. I'll get you a new one.
bro, it's like $50.
Yeah, honestly.
It's a
And
circle
even
of
if
metal.
it wasn't $50, I mean, even if it was 2 to 3 times the order of magnitude, it doesn't take away the fact that it's between that or a human life. It's like,
Well, you assume that he won't give it up due to sentimental value, but what sentimental value is left to salvage if you die or are injured in the incident?
not only that, but sentimental value trying to reason with a junkie.
Right.
I understand the fact that the movie needed a catalyst to be able to put us in the position where it was at. I just found that, not that it was a bad one, but I felt that the movie, or at least Luke, because Luke is the main protagonist, right? And we see everything through his phenomenology, both in relation to the guilt that he bears from having to have been so close to the actual,
Incident.
incident and the terribleness of it, and the only one who actually had a first-hand account as to what occurred, which put him at odds with the rest of his friends, because the rest of his friends at that point can only infer what happened in there. And his friend Dom, later on in the movie, who was one of the more outspoken and more antagonistic of the friends, he makes the point about the fact that isn't it strange that you got out without a drop of blood on you when he got his skull bashed,
So can I do a checkpoint with you,
Yeah.
in the beginning, from the beginning of the conversation? Can I get your overall vibes from the movie and your overall feelings, and we can revisit that after
Sure.
we've thoroughly discussed it?
Of course, go ahead.
Well, that's pretty much the question.
Oh.
Is what's your overall feeling? How did you feel walking out of it freshly?
Oh, okay. I felt that the movie could have most certainly been a little longer. There's few movies that I feel like maybe that. This one I think maybe cut too much fat off of it. I actually think that they kept it a bit too lean for my tastes because of the fact that the end was so ambiguous, right? We even made a little joke about the fact that the forest ends and now maybe there's another plains monster
Yeah.
at the other side. Yeah. But supposedly, I don't know, maybe I imagined this, but at the end, didn't he see a car
Yeah,
going
there's a
down the road?
highway.
There's an
Yeah.
actual highway and
Yeah.
stuff, so...
So that's something I think that a lot of horror movies do, is the ambiguous ending, but it's still
Or
a
the
little
hope at the
lighthearted.
end.
A little bit of,
Yeah.
one can only
they're gonna
assume.
make it out probably, but we're not gonna show you because that's not important.
Right. My biggest issue with the movie, if there is one, is just the conjoining of the themes, I would say, in relation to the fact that with Luke being our main character, his biggest burden is his survivor's guilt, essentially, right? And his feelings of inadequacy and impotence in relation to what happened to his friend, and his feeling or inkling that maybe he could have done more, and that in his friend's light, both explicit from Dom's position and implicit from just the way that everyone kind of looks at him when the subject gets broached. You know, that maybe you could have done more. Like, shit, bro, like if that would have been you getting stuck up, we probably would have thrown bottles at those people, you know what I mean, or made a ruckus or something, right? Like, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of leeway in there that I can most certainly understand the sympathy from both sides. I can have sympathy from both angles. Again, because of the fact that we're so privy to Luke's phenomenology, we're just, again, very, as a result of like the directorial persuasion, we're more likely to feel more sympathy for him because we were there with him as he was crouching and thinking, okay, like as you said, like he was shaking the ball. It's like, okay, like can I get a little shot? And like it looked like he was revving himself up to put himself in that position. But then I think at that point, if I'm remembering it correctly, it almost seemed as though he thought that his friend was going to get off. You know what I mean? Like he gave him the wallet, you know, everything was going through, and then his friend started giving resistance, and then that's when everything essentially went to shit. So, again, it was wonderful feeling that level of dissonance between just the player characters and the story, right? Because everyone kind of thinks that they know what the right move should have been in that particular moment. And we even made the point as we were watching the movie that for all we know, they could have at the end of all of that been grieving two dead friends. Yeah, like we don't know what could have easily activated in the other junkie that would have possibly, the one that didn't have a lead pipe, that would have, you know, fight or flight inside of him that would have caused, you know, him to pull out a knife or something to stab both of them or whatever, you know. And so it's like that openness of like of what the possibilities could have been from just that one instance was a great great hook aspect, because I personally thought that the movie was going to go in a far more psychological bend to it, especially after the original section where you see the traumatic aspect and he automatically ends up in Sweden inside of his tent.
Okay, so when you say your biggest qualm with the movie is the balance, or not very good balance of themes.
Sorry,
Are you talking about?
I'm trying to get to that second half of it, right? Because supposedly it's the survivor's guilt and his feelings of inadequacy, impotency, and cowardice, right? And the other half of the movie supposedly is more of the overcoming aspect on his end, about the fact that he doesn't just freeze into place in the cellar, you know, and when Dom gets taken away, because that. If he would have kept his, I guess his character arc all the way through, he would have potentially just stayed there and waited until he would have been the next sacrifice, you know. But at the same time, I just personally think that it's really, really hard to try to make the point of cowardice in such a horrible situation, you know. That's my one issue. That's my one dissonance in relation to the themes. Okay, like because he was. If we want to be horrible and call him a coward, right, from that position, it was a position wherein he understood, like you're in a liquor store, you know, it was a mundane aspect of life that can happen to anybody, right, but it's still within the bounds of things that can happen within your own natural, normal life, you know, and he didn't step up to plate. You know, if you want to be mean about the way you view him, right? He didn't step up to plate. But then we have this situation over here that's supposed to be the diametric opposite, that's supposed to showcase him as, you know, being better, but it's so supernatural in its wake that it just seems like cowardice just seems out of the question. You know what I mean? Like
interesting. So I almost feel like now hearing you explain this, that maybe the movie gave you the wrong expectations, set up the wrong expectations in the first part.
I mean, I would disagree with that, because I think the beginning of it set the theme for the rest of it, because I think he's fighting that role that he feels like he's been put in the whole time they're in the forest. There's several implications of that. He tells Dom, I believe it was, in the forest, when they're alone, I will never leave you,
Mm-hmm.
even though they'd pretty much severed their friendship before that.
No, I totally.
Like, I think he makes many steps in that direction
I-
after that point.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I just meant like in the sense that at its heart, it's basically a creature feature. You know, like it's a monster movie.
Yeah.
Even though they attribute it to like a bastard son of Loki or whatever it is. But it's interesting that you would think that it was going to take the more psychological benefits, because it does seem like it's making those kind of promises right away.
I can see that.
And the theme holds strong. You're right. It doesn't, they never let it go, but that's also maybe where you're experiencing the dissonance and the themes between what is essentially a creature feature and then the psychological horror aspect.
And again, because at least a strong half of the movie lies within the psychological horror aspect of it, right? Like, even you can even consider the whole him going from that traumatic situation in the liquor store to him just like being inside his tent. That's kind of spooky, and like, what was that? Because in my mind, I was like, did that even happen? You know what I mean? Like, was that something that he imagined that happened to his friend, and then slowly but surely you come to find that it's only 4 friends that are there as opposed to the 5 initially, right? And then it comes to creep the fact that was actually a real thing that occurred. I love that. And again, it was within the bounds of the initial promises that I thought the movie was going for, which I thought, again, it was going to be a more psychological, everyone kind of gets an epiphany kind of situation, which is what the shack was kind of giving off, the vibes, right? Everybody had a nightmare. Everybody got to a particular extreme in relation to what that shack made them feel. But then later it comes to be that that's just one of the superpowers of the monster. Like, it can give you a genjutsu, you know what I mean? Like, it can put you in like an illusion.
For the non-Naruto fans.
Oh, sorry. No, get out of here.
This is the second time in a row that we've gotten hard anime references to explain a movie.
Yeah, sorry. Like, just, full-on psychological illusions, right? And...
Well, future telling, though, at least in Dom's case.
Because he had a nightmare about seeing his wife.
Yeah, so I don't even want to just chalk it up to just psychological illusions.
So I just want to be monster theory, right? Luke has the 5 holes in his chest.
Yes.
And the rest of the people we see later in the movie also have that hole.
And that lady looks like she has almost like a swastika made around.
Yeah, or like a tattoo to
Yeah.
connect, and that's what makes up the runic symbol we see.
Yep.
But she also says, when he's talking to the one lady that can speak English, and she says, "You have a great pain," right? And this makes me think that's what ties the monster movie to the psychological horror.
Yep.
It's like him showing Luke the liquor store scene over and over again, and the way that the holes are shaped on his chest, it almost looks like a lamprey. And it seems to me that if this is some sort of bastard son of Loki god who lives in the forest and has to feed off of something,
Right.
maybe it's that. Maybe it's he chose Luke for the great pain that he saw that he was going through, and then some sort of spiritual lamprey continued to feed off of it each consecutive night that they remain in the forest.
I can see that. If there is one theme that I really started to pick up on once my expectations began to change, right? Because it's not like I got stuck in one place and this is that's just how I felt the rest of the movie.
You're
I was
flexible.
I was like, okay, the monster's out there. Okay, cool. If anything, I love the fact that this movie was brave enough to show the monster a good bit of time. That's one of the nice things about nowadays is both CGI and normal effects, I would call them, have such a strong intermarriage now that the monster doesn't just have to be in the periphery the entire time.
I want to put props on that on top of your props, because I watch a lot of horror movies and a lot of monster themed ones in the mix there, and I want to say that it is just so common that they want to leave it to your imagination and then want to not give you any satisfaction on that. And
which is
to
fine
me,
sometimes, but
yeah, I mean, if you do the monster badly and then show it to me, I'm going to be a little bummed out.
Right.
But I am just really glad that they spent the time on this monster and then they showed it to us. That is huge for me.
It did a lot to really cement the fact that we were actually dealing with something that can be real in the monster's big enough, right, that it most certainly looks supernatural, but it doesn't look so massive and behemoth like that like you wonder, okay, it's been thousands of years, how could people not have been able to catch it by this point? You know what I mean? Like, it's about the size of maybe 3 mooses, you know, but at the same time it isn't exactly that's not super crazy, especially considering it lives in a very thicketed forest, right? Like I like that. It felt as though it was something that it was almost like a species that just hasn't been found to a particular
triple. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and also the slow unveiling of it was so powerful for me. My favorite part in the entire movie is the scene where you can see the fingers around the trees just a little bit too high, you know, and it gives you a deeply unsettled feeling.
That's all I was gonna add was triple props for that monster, because maybe the most unique movie monster I've ever seen.
For sure.
Like half human, half tree, half moose, sort of.
Half Princess Mononoke's spirit. Yeah.
We need more anime references.
It honestly looked exactly like that, because you know the Princess Mononoke one, it has the face, like the neck jutted out in that direction, and this one it's like all inverted in to the degree that it's like hiding in, like inside of itself. Pretty much.
Are the eyes down by the nose? Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Like where you would expect the nose to be, I should say.
Yeah, and it was awesome. It was a very awesome monster. There's very few times that a horror movie will actually have me like congratulating them on the monster at all, you know. But in this one, it was very useful, especially considering their restraint, in the sense that all throughout the movie, prior to the monster actually showing up, and you're like, okay, there's a monster, no question. There's always that question, okay, is this just people? You know, like, is it just spooky people dressing up?
Hillbillies, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. Swedish hillbillies, or like a situation like The Village, right? Where like supposedly there's a monster, but it's just, you know, some asshole in like in a costume.
So I could probably list horror movies with that theme.
Yeah.
But this movie really like punches all of my horror movie card holes or whatever. Like
Card holes.
Right.
Boxes.
The monster's great. Exactly.
It goes right for the holes, and it
checks
fills
out
all
the-
of
It
them.
punches the holes. Yeah. I need. The monster's great. The pacing is perfect. Except, like you said, it could have been a little longer. I maybe don't agree, but that's just because I like my horror movies really short.
Nice and concise.
The characters, there's only 4 of them that you have to concern yourself with. There's not a big group of people that are dying, so it doesn't.
And
so
none
really
of them are annoying
feels
to any particular degree. Like, you can really feel why they're all been friends for so long. Like,
Dom's a little annoying.
but see, that's the thing. Like Dom ingrained in the group is far more like, you know, because you can pass them around. You know what I mean? Like Dom's talking to Phil, then talking to to Hutch, talking to Luke. You know, and back and forth. It isn't like as though he's just over pervasive to one degree. You know?
Definitely.
And you said early on when we were watching the movie as well that that you were enjoying it because none of them seemed like they were doing things that were out of the ordinary. You're like, these are not people that are making stupid decisions.
No.
Except for maybe taking the shortcut, but that might have been Dom's
Or
fault.
shining
Whatever.
the flashlight
Right.
in the dark.
Right,
But
they
even
weren't,
that's
like,
rational from the perspective of them not knowing that anything bad was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's not like they have clairvoyance and we can call them out after the fact that now we know that, oh, what idiots for going into a room full of fucking monsters, right?
Yeah.
But they were doing things that normal people might do.
Especially after your friend sprained his ankle, be like, okay, can we cut 5-6 hours off of this?
And
Sure,
they made
we
it
have
clear.
a compass,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, it's like nothing about the situation exactly screamed danger, right? Like the danger most certainly came from after the fact, and even after they stayed in that shack, I was still like on their side, on Hutch's side of being like, just keep going the same way, because it could very well have been that you might have, you know, in the interim, you might have drank some bad water, eaten something that could have, you know, put you in a position where everyone just had a shitty trip, you know, like everyone tripped at the same time.
Well, and outside of that, I think, too, they make a point that all of the characters are disagreeing. Everybody has a different plan and a different idea. So you don't really feel like everybody's just diving into a stupid decision. Because definitely, if you have a group of 4 and then 2 are like, all right, we're going this way, I'd probably go with them because you're not going to split your group up.
100%. That's exactly what I felt the moment that Dom was like walking down the path and be like, I personally felt that's a stupid move, but if I were standing there, I'd probably still go with him just because I wouldn't want to lose my friend. You know, it's like I would much rather walk with him the hour and a half before he feels like a fucking moron, and then we can kill me back. You know, essentially. You know, because that way at least I don't have the fucking disgusting inkling of being like, fuck, did I just, especially being Luke, right? Because Luke has, again, that survivor's guilt and the feeling of, you know, potential cowardice and impotence that he doesn't want to be put in that position again.
Yep.
That he needs to show out essentially for everybody. Like,
yeah, and it really puts us as the viewers in that contradictory position, because we all, while we're watching movies, are like, okay, what would I do? And I think for the most part we all landed on like, yeah, even though we don't like that idea, we're not going to split up our group of 4 after this really weird night,
because that'd be really fucking stupid.
Yeah, especially with all the signs on the trees.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know who's out here.
That's another great thing about this movie is the ominence plants, the runic markings here and there.
Very unsettling.
The tiny statue in the cabin. The harshness in the tone between the day before the first night and then after. And nobody is smiling anymore. Nobody's joking around.
Right.
When that was really their vibe before that. Which you imagine that would definitely set in real life. Like, as soon as reality starts to set in a little bit, as soon as there's any danger present, you're gonna start like bashing heads pretty much.
I would have liked to know a bit more about what is it exactly that the monster, right? Because it obviously seems as though it has some form of intelligence and it's ritualistic, right? So there is something about something that
I have 2 small theories on this.
Let's have them.
The first one is a little more, I think, realistic in the same line of thinking as like this, for whatever reason, this forest god needs to feed on people's pain, and through that vein, he sort of in the way that you might think a very human or planet type god might do, is he wants people to worship him. That's why he keeps shoving Luke down on the ground
and
near the end of the movie.
And it snickers too. It laughed in such an evil way, like when it actually got him to be put in like a position of like being prostrate.
Subservient,
Yeah.
And then it even stands up into a position where it's like, I'm ready.
Really
Worship
broadcasting
me.
itself. Yeah. And my other theory is that he just likes sprucing up the forest with like bodies, and he wants it to look nice.
That's your second theory?
I could only imagine.
He likes to spruce up the
He
floor.
likes to decorate. And human bodies happen to be very pretty when hung on trees.
I would imagine it does
Did
look.
you think those were pretty?
It does look as though it kind of sets them like almost like a doll. You know what I mean? Like he just kind of sets them on the tree and just kind of just lets them like sit there.
I mean, but couldn't we consider that maybe that's more of an example or a territory marking, because he clearly scratches the trees like deer do. He marks his,
another good reason
There
why I
was a
thought
lot
perhaps
of-
there was a plains monster at the end of Steve.
yes.
Yeah,
Boundary demon.
Yeah.
Stay out of the forest.
And then
These
stay out of
trees
the
are
plains.
marked.
Stay the fuck out of Sweden is essentially what they're trying to say.
the fuck out of Moral of the story.
I'm just saying that they put a little bit of focus on the trees that were scratched.
Right,
like
yeah,
they
for
were,
sure.
That they were marked, and that's how deer
And not just
mark their
scratched, but
territory.
just dropped. I mean,
Yeah.
after that first night inside of the cabin, like fucking just big
Really
chunks
making
of
the point.
big chunks of forest were just destroyed. Yeah, I like your idea about it being sort of like a lamprey, kind of like a leech, you know, like a psychological leech. And I would wonder if perhaps cowardice is the thing that it feeds on, you know, because if we recall when that second night in the woods, when he has that second nightmare and he like peeks his head out and we were like, oh, like shitting on him for doing that, like we wouldn't do that, and like we heard like
why would you do that?
Yeah,
We're bigger cowards than the coward.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the thing and like the monster through its illusion calls him a coward, right? So it can pierce to a particular degree through like
It knows what gets him.
yeah. And also, is there anything to be said about the fact that Hutch was the first one to die, natural leader of the group?
I wondered about that, because
You
that was
know?
the one that I least expected to die.
Yeah, I mean Hutch was for sure the most reliable. He was, I mean, out of the group of four, he was most certainly pack leader. Like he's the guy that most certainly can like recalibrate essentially everybody's ire amongst each other.
And he
like,
made the hard decisions by appealing to each person.
Yeah, exactly. He even said that he might have to pull rank, but we never even see him having to do that. It just
I
kind of
wondered
all
what that meant.
it all just kind of meshes into itself, kind of situation. Like
Well, and when he talks to Luke about Luke going out to find help because Dom's knee was injured and getting worse, even though he didn't let on about that to Dom, he just kept underplaying
I think if
the
anything,
injury. But he said to Luke, "You're the strongest. You should go," which to me is like exactly how you get somebody to go.
exactly.
That's
No,
what a good leader does.
that's exactly what I was gonna say, to add on perfectly to what you're saying, in the sense that Hutch knew exactly how to be able to reinvigorate his men, essentially, right? It's like Luke is feeling a certain understandable type of way, because that was right after Dom let loose about how, you know, like the implicit and then his explicit consideration of like that time, right?
The big elephant in the room.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, Hutch did right by Luke by allowing him to be like, okay, buddy, take point, you know, real quick. Let us know like what's up there. You know what I mean? I'll stay here with these guys. You know, like, because if he stays there, right? If Hutch were to have gone and Luke would have stayed, who knows if him and Dom would have gotten into another argument? And Phil doesn't have the psychological wherewithal at that point to like actually wrangle them together.
Well,
you
that's
know,
just
like,
it. Is
Poor
Hutch
Phil.
knows that he can keep them going, whereas Luke can't keep them going.
Yeah.
But he can contribute in another way.
Which again makes me wonder, does what the monster want is like the ultimate amount of despair, right? So it's like you might not be able to get that from Hutch, so you just kill him outright, right? Because again, like, this monster's intelligent. Like, it's been stalking them the entire time, like. And I can only imagine that this isn't the first time that it's seen a pack of humans go through its forest, you know what I mean, and understand the psychology of what a group of humans looks like. So, like, you take down the pack leader, you know what I mean, then you take down what is essentially, like, more of, like, the weaker fawn of the group, which I would call Phil, because he didn't really contribute anything, both from the aspect of antagonism or anything else aside from he's just another friend, you know. And then you're just left with the two butting heads, essentially.
So here's a thought on that: is maybe the monster is targeting those that he can collect as worshippers. Maybe he's killing off the ones that he already knows won't take that turn.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, the theme throughout with Luke's character, based on the feedback he got from his friends and based on his actions following, is that he's impressionable. So based on the experiences that happen, he could be brought to this like worshipping a monster out in the woods position, and maybe the monster knew that that wouldn't be the outcome for the other characters. Because like Dom doesn't strike me as the strongest character, but he's certainly stubborn.
He's defiant at the very least,
Yes.
right? Even to the very end, you know, he's like, "Come on, let's get it over with. Like, why don't you just fucking kill me?" You know,
Yeah.
like,
You fucking pricks.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he says it a lot.
Yeah, I really do wonder wherein lies the significance of having the last illusion that you see via the monster be the person that you love, like that. You know, like.
Oh, it's perfect, because especially in Dom's case, because he knows he's pretty certain he's going to die. What better way to pull that last bit of pain out of somebody than to show them the person that they love the most right before they're certain they're going to die, and create that longing, that
Well, when
missing,
he gets close, the
that
monster
regret.
looks into his face.
right into his eyes. Yeah, I can't imagine anything more fucking horrible than like, hey, you know you're gonna die. Also, here's your wife. Like right before you go.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can most certainly see if what the monster is going for extreme sadism in order to be able to satiate this like psychological bent, it most certainly seems like that would be the right way to go about it.
Because Dom said to Luke too, when he knew he was going to die, he said, "You're going to get out of here. Tell my wife I tried to come back." Or I tried to get back to her. So that was clearly his number one priority.
And that was his nightmare too. What's interesting is we never get to see Phil or Hutch's nightmare.
Right, and therein lies the one small little crimp in your consideration about who might be the most susceptible. Because I personally feel that wouldn't it be Phil who would be most susceptible to potential worship as a result of the fact that even in his nightmare, it got him to the position where he was doing the worshiping.
What I think
I
that
can
was,
see that. That's very fair.
What I think that was his sort of hand waving, or at least that's my guess when he first. You remember when you guys were saying that you saw him maybe pissing in the corner of the cabin?
That was Hutch.
Oh, it was Hutch.
Yeah, that was Hutch.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I thought it was Phil, and then I thought maybe it was sort of like a retribution.
Just because he's being so flippant about the situation.
Isn't it Phil that says, "I'll give any one of you $1,000"?
That's
That was
he's the one that says that. Yep, exactly.
So
Wait.
that does seem a little antagonistic, especially
Perhaps.
if you're a forest god and you're like, "Fuck this guy, you're
Yeah.
gonna worship me."
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, we for certainly know that the monster's sadistic.
Mm-hmm.
We most certainly know that the monster has no ties to loyalty whatsoever, because it starts killing its own people the moment that the cabin with the mummies starts to die.
So I'm a little bit curious about that specific piece, because the woman that it killed, I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but they were all in a bowing position when it came back to the camp.
Yep.
And she fell onto her side and curled up in a fetal position, and then it targeted her.
Yep.
So I wondered if it was like the overcoming of fear, or like she fell out of line in that way, because it was very focused on her. It was holding her face in the way that it did the sacrifices.
Yeah, and her eyes looked like they were either cut out or burned out of
Yeah.
her eye.
Took her eyes,
yeah. I wonder.
But I thought it was interesting that she fell onto her side right before that moment.
Yeah. I guess if there is anything to be said about like trying to connect the cowardice aspect to what the cult was going through, you know, like the cult is essentially the people who are alive are a bunch of cowards, right? Like they don't do anything in relation to try to fight back against the monster in any part, or escape in any particular way, right? They're stuck there, and they're willing to keep sacrificing more people in order to be able to keep themselves alive, and even almost to like a purgatory-esque degree, because the monster keeps them alive even longer, like than is naturally feasible, to the degree that they eventually will become one of those mummies on top inside of that room too. So I wonder if that's exactly what the monster is looking for, is like that exact kind of like mentality, right? It's like you're already a coward and you're already willing to put yourself ahead, you know what I mean, of other people, to the degree that you're willing to sacrifice other people.
Ooh.
You know.
Ooh, this is getting really close to Christianity. It's like it's butting right up against it now.
Anime references for Jose.
And
Religion
theology,
references.
Christian, yeah. That's why we're here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it really makes me wonder, because it's like, what is it about the people who are there right now, right? Like who are actively worshiping at that moment, and the fact that it sounds like, well, all of the mummies are alive, right? Like every single one of them are still doing their chants, and they're still like actively, like if anything, they're doing the most worshiping toward the creature.
Definitely.
And
Yep,
it's
I would
once
say-
their chant is over that the creature is kind of like, that's when the creature comes back and we're like, oh, what'd you do? Like, those guys were the best. Like, no one chanted like them.
They worshipped all the time.
Yeah, exactly. They were so down. That.
yeah, end state, really.
And stay.
Those were my completed worshipers.
Yeah, exactly. Because it kind of sounds like the monster does have, again, like if there's, to add to your like decorating like penchant for the monster, it does almost feel as though it's creating like a little dollhouse in the middle of the forest to a
So-
particular degree.
Yeah, so was the first cabin that they like went into with kind of the idol upstairs, was that the first step to the next church, you could say, where he was going to set up potentially, because the other one looked pretty full, if I'm going to say so. It could be like another base that was going to be set up. It could be like a spreading of this religion, if you want to call it that.
You know what would have been really, really good? And this is just like a post hoc situation now that we've seen the whole movie all the way through. I think little extra flourishes would have really helped like interconnect all of these things together. Like, for example,
Jose coming in with what he would have liked to see.
most certainly.
We have to.
Yeah.
Half
So-
to 3/4 in, this is what we do.
So imagine if the when they go into the cabin, right, in order to be able to explain why it is that they all have the nightmares, you know, like just a quick little scene wherein when they view, because they all kind of get up there at the same time. Phil gets up there first, so if anything, he's the one that's been looking at the thing the longest, right? So it kind of would make sense that he would be more indoctrinated than the others in relation to just looking. Because I mean, the picture now we know that the statuesque thing, you know what I mean, on the thing is actually a representation of the creature's head.
Not 100%,
right?
though. Can you explain the feet?
No, I can't. No,
Okay.
but the majority of it most certainly looks like.
I would say yes. Yep.
Okay, so to add a video game reference over here, kind of like the Reapers do in Mass Effect, where in even
Didn't play it.
you never played Mass Effect? Well, within it, like
For the viewers.
they're a super alien species that allow that essentially even their contour, like looking at them, begins to mess with your with your own like psychology to the degree that you kind of begin to like worship them. You know, like you slowly become indoctrinated just by pure presence of being around them.
It's like a unity type of situation.
Exactly right. So what I'm saying is that like one thing that would have really helped is like if when they all looked at the statue at the same time, like that was one of the first times that the monster kind of began like it's like coursing power over to them. You know what I mean? Like even the representation of the monster begins to pulsate like optical illusions and like, you know, psychological like, you know, like cut like pins into, like hooks, talons into yourself, you
So
know,
not
like,
as
and maybe like if they would have all like if they would have been like a little scene where they're like, man, it's like kind of hard to look at the statue, isn't it? Like like isn't it weird? Like we should all get the fuck out. I mean, no matter what, they would have both all ended up downstairs, no matter what, right? Like it would have always ended in the same position. Where they're like, no, that's just fucking... Like, they could have just as easily brushed it off, too, right? But, like, no, like, who the fuck wants to look at that? You know what I mean? Like, nobody actually wants to look at the statue.
So the way that you said that, though, makes me think of, and obviously this isn't as tangible as what you described, but it does make me kind of look back on when they were in that room and they were looking at it and they were leaving. Luke was the last one to leave. It was like everybody else left the room, and he even left himself in there alone with it for a minute, which is something that strikes me as something I would never do. So it's like, is that some sort of, maybe it's just foreshadowing, or it's something about his person that he stayed in there and he wasn't looking away from it. He was kind of glued to it, or he had a drawing to it.
Right, and that's what and that's why I'm just talking about like the just tiny little flourishes that I think would have been able to push us in the position, in the promises that the movie is actually trying to go for, right? Because at this juncture in the movie that I'm talking about, I was still in the presupposition that the movie was going to be far more psychologically horrific in its basing than the creature feature kind of situation that you guys were talking about. If the thing would have actually been able like showcased like an emanation of like power, you know what I mean, even psychological power, I could have then began shifting my mentality like even a little sooner of being like, okay, it isn't just their mind, like there's something else, you know, maybe it's witchcraft, you know, because they even mentioned like this is straight up witchcraft, like this,
right away,
like this is what, you know.
Do you like that, though?
What?
Because I mean, I feel like that's a taste thing a little bit, is like the meshing together of two different styles, and maybe it's about how you do it, but like I, for one, and I'm very interested in hearing your perspective on this, I like that kind of action in the movie that throws me off the trail a little bit. Like I'm looking for certain things while these other things are happening, and it switches over, and it's really what I look for in most horror movies, is I didn't know what was going to happen.
Like subverting your expectations.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them try to do that, and I feel strongly that this one did that as well. But that's a quality that I like. Whether or not it's done well is another conversation. But I don't like everything. I don't like usually things that fall into one specific style. Like this is a creature feature from beginning to end.
Gotcha. See, yeah, I'm more monolithic in my thinking, I guess, in relation to it, because I like promises to build on themselves, and then even if they don't pay off, at least everything was consistent. My big thing is consistency. Right?
Do you ever have a problem with a movie being too predictable in that field?
No, I actually like predictable movies.
You do?
I really do. Yeah, because within the concept of predictable movies, I can play with what's inside the movie and what led to the predictability of it.
You can
right?
dig deeper.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to one of the issues that I always have with unpredictable movies is the fact that they kind of decide to go in such, you know, like hard left, hard right kind of positions just to get to the position of being a surprise.
Yeah.
That my, I guess, too logical of brain, you know what I mean? It's like I'm not I don't feel as though the satisfaction lies in the being surprised. I think the satisfaction, in my personal consideration, is in the consistency of thought. You know, like, can you maintain a consistent thought in relation to the thing that you're trying to show?
And still make it good.
Exactly, right?
Because I can see what you're saying. Like, unpredictability as a stance can easily be a cop-out. And I've seen that in many, many situations. So it's really that balance of, like, is this trying to be unpredictable and unique, or is this, like, a cohesive meshing of styles?
Yeah, exactly.
What would you grade it? The meshing.
The meshing? The meshing of styles.
For yourself.
Between the psychological horror and then eventually becoming a creature film, essentially, I would say that it is very good. I do really enjoy it. There were, again, I really do wish that this movie was just a tiny bit longer because, for example, like, the way that Phil died, it was just so sudden. You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing extra about the capacity, because he would have been a great linchpin in relation to what the monster's looking for, right? Because
that's good.
Yeah, because, like, again, like Philip showcased both the pliability of thought in relation to being a good worshiper for the monster, and also, you know, like, being a good friend. Like, he still could have shown out at the end of the whole situation. So I think that his murder and his, like, removal of the film was way too quick. It didn't really add anything in relation to the mythos of the monster and what exactly its, like, its desires are, right? Because there seems to be a desire within the monster for something in particular. You know, like, it's discerning and discriminating to a particular degree. So it really made me wonder, what is it about Phil that it didn't like?
Yeah, he was kind of sold short.
Yeah.
That's a complaint that I think I can confidently accredit to this movie. Is maybe it's because it's short, maybe it's because the character development didn't happen rapidly enough, whatever it might be. I will say that I've seen all three of us at this point stumble over character names, and that's, to me, that's a little bit of a disappointment. Like, we didn't get to know them well enough or quickly enough to the point that we can even really keep their names straight. And that's, if that was a little bit more balanced out, I might come out of this more satisfied. I might have more time to get attached to each character.
Yeah, Phil was a letdown. For the most, you know, that's why they kept it to 4, and props to them for keeping it that small. Because
Apparently they needed fewer.
Yeah, actually 3 might have been better.
Yeah,
you know?
It might have actually been better between just Hutch, Dom, and Luke. You
the
know,
only ones that were actually fleshed out. In the
yeah,
film.
exactly. Because Philip just was there just to add an extra issue, essentially.
Yeah,
and, like,
we don't know anything about his character.
No, nothing. Yeah. If anything, at least with Dom, we know that he's very successful in the real world. He's got a very good job. He's got a beautiful wife. You know, great kids. So it's like, so if anything,
We know
again,
his
it makes sense why they would be friends with Dom. He's a put together guy, right? It's like, he has parties at his house. You bet that there's probably a really nice time. You know what I mean? Like, there's probably beer full. You know what I mean? Like, full in the fridge and kind of situation. You know what I mean?
Reference having become friends earlier at uni. Too,
exactly.
So it's,
and
like,
I'm sure that
developed.
I'm sure that if anything, he probably has the placement in the friend group that he's so reliable with everything that he kind of gets that little bit of being a bit of a more edge of being an asshole. Because, like, if anybody needs a car rental, hit up Dom. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you're stuck somewhere, hit up Dom. You know what I mean? And because of that, I'm sure he's probably just going a little jaded and be like, for you fuckers, you know what I mean? Always needing me and shit.
Fucking leeches.
Yeah.
Maybe those impressions come from a tinge of jealousy because they do talk about him being so successful, but when he hurts his knee, everyone's like, it doesn't hurt that
you
bad.
Fucking baby.
Like they maybe they have an impression of him that he's privileged or that he's spoiled or that he landed on things that they wanted.
And every single time they mention, like when Luke punches him, right, the Hutch goes right away and he's like, he didn't break your nose, like, don't start with your shit, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, exactly. Like again, Hutch being the leader of his friends in a genuine dictatorial kind of way. Like, he just happens to have the best kind of, you know, meshing in the hierarchy of the people that he's with. You know what I mean? He's able to be like, nah, quit the shit. You said horrible things to him right now. It's amazing he didn't fucking kick you after he also punched you.
He should have kicked your knee is what he should have done. So, alternative title for the film, Who the Fuck is Phil?
Yeah.
Who are you, Phil? We want to know more about you. Who were you?
Yeah,
catchy. Anyway.
Yeah, everything about the movie was great except the rushedness of it. You know, like, there was like there's such a great skeleton there, you know, in relation to it, and they managed to be able to flesh it out really well, you know, 3 out of the 4 ways, I feel. And I think that if they would have added just a tiny bit more character progression from Philip's aspect, it would have added an extra 10 minutes to the movie, which I think then would have actually put the movie in a different position, right?
Like you were saying, maybe that got cut. Maybe that was cut directorial or Netflix discretion, you know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
I have to say, though, as far as, like, complaints on horror movies go, I rarely find myself, after watching a horror movie, saying, I wish this movie had been longer.
Mm-hmm.
So, props for that. As far as a complaint goes,
sure.
I agree that it's a weakness in the movie, but it's a good one to have in that field.
So true.
Yeah.
So many horror movies are way too long with 0 content.
I mean, even like for our last session here, we did Mother, and you were like, this is too long. They spent too much time on the bullshit, you know, and that was much more higher budget. So I got to give props for that specific complaint.
And even this one, I mean, it begins a lot more low key. You know, they're in the real world, quote unquote, right? But even there, like, it starts from the position of the catalyst of the whole matter, right? Like, there's pretty much no time wasted whatsoever in this movie. It's very tight. It's
very, very tight.
Very tight. I do have to commend them entirely for that, you know, because they could have just as easily added in a 2 to 3 long chanting and dancing montage.
I've seen them
for the ritual. I mean, for the
them.
ritual aspect of like them like sacrificing Dom. You know what I mean? It could have just been a straight 2 to 3 minutes kind of situation as the monster. You know, and that would have actually probably also killed like the intensity of the monster, having them bring it out in such a long, drawn out way. You know, like
stop teasing us. Yeah, give us the fucking food.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a Midsummer complaint right there.
Midsummer was a real letdown, but we don't have to talk about that.
But I do want to say, like, yeah, as far as the pacing goes and everything, I'm glad it kept my attention through the whole thing, and just, like, I will give a shout out to any movie that gives me a truly chilling feeling at any point, and I can give that to this movie, and I can't give it to very many horror movies I've watched.
I 100% agree. I thought this movie was really good. I was very quick to say that I didn't like Mother, although I enjoyed watching it and talking about it. This one I enjoyed both watching and talking about it. Again, if anything, I would have enjoyed watching a bit more of it. You know, like
this one's really fun. This is kind of a hidden gem in a lot of ways. It popped up on Netflix 3 years ago now.
As a Netflix original.
Yeah.
As a Netflix original, I've never heard anybody else talk about it.
No.
Flew way under the radar. But this, for me, is like, this encapsulates what a horror movie should be.
And this is a low-budget indie movie, and I especially love finding those, like, ones that were just done well. Like, this one quickly, for sure, but made well. Like, you kept me involved for this entire hour and a half.
For sure. I mean, the fact that our biggest complaint is the fact that the characters were so good with each other that we would have liked more interaction between them. I mean, like, kudos, genuinely.
Yeah, it speaks volumes.
Yeah,
Sure.
honestly.
So, I do want to call back, though. I do want to hear everybody's thoughts, because it's an itch I have on this movie. The girl in the village who speaks English. I know that you and I both had a thought during the movie that maybe this girl was one of the women in the picture that was found in the wallet when they found the tent with the boots. Like,
Yes.
you said maybe it was the daughter, and I had thought originally maybe it was the mother, but having seen that there is aging obviously in this camp, like, do we think that's it? Do we think this monster maybe salvages one person from every group?
I think so. I think that's exactly what occurs. And I think that's exactly the reason why the individual with the bald head, if you recall, as he's getting set up, like, to shoot him, I think the reason why that guy was trying to, like, calm him down is because he's like, no, you're one of us. Like, you're not gonna get, like...
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
fine.
Like, you're, like you'll be one of the...
mark.
Yeah, exactly. You're one of the people here, essentially. Like...
It would make a lot of sense if it was either the daughter or the mother from that picture, because then obviously there's a whole bunch of pain that motherfucker is sucking out of that person.
And from the
Mhm.
group
It's a dead
too,
family.
I mean, she comes in and she covers his ears and she said, "We're getting ready for the sacrifice. It'll be
Mhm.
over soon."
And she's got more modern looking clothes.
Not just
It's like,
that,
yeah,
like
yeah.
to me, her level of empathy
point.
says that she went through this semi-recently,
Right,
Or
yeah.
more recent. Like maybe she hasn't been through them taking in people time and time and time again to build. Like maybe she was the last one that went through this, and now she has to see somebody go through this.
It's very possible because a lot of the corpses that you actually get to see are very desiccated, like very dry, very old. If anything, it kind of seems as though they proxy the deer and the moose with the like when there aren't humans around, I guess, like the monster is okay with taking like the deer or whatever, right, and putting that up.
That's a good thing to call out. I'm curious about that.
Yeah,
but
'cause-
I hadn't thought of it up till you mentioned it.
So,
a good point.
so I'm wondering if those are proxies for until somebody comes through in that kind of way.
Or it's like sort of like you decorate the bathroom one way and then you decorate the living room.
Would you stop
a
saying
different way.
decorate?
You got your people section over here that looks
No.
nice.
Yeah.
You got your moose and your deer.
I think it's interesting though because it's like especially the old woman that comes in when she first shows the mark on her chest. When she comes in, she's so calloused and she's so closed off that she's just like, you have a mark, you get some water,
Like you ain't got shit.
Yeah, and it's like that to me is like this lady's been doing this
Like
a
if anything,
while.
yeah, it's admin to her
And
at this
she's
point,
old.
essentially.
Yeah. I'm here to welcome the new recruit.
I've done this 30 times. Another thing that, just one last punch card on that horror movie. They find the perfect balance for me in showing you the horror and not showing you the horror.
Yes.
When Dom is upstairs getting tortured, we don't know what happens.
Yeah.
When the very first time we see Rob getting killed, we don't see it, we only hear it.
The
Which
scream.
is even more frightening. The
I
screams
have-
of people getting taken away in the... Yes.
I have to give the first scream so much credit. That scream particular, it's done so well. I don't know if you guys have ever heard somebody scream who is really in danger, but I heard one of my friends scream one time when they were about to get crushed by a car. They were between the door of their car, and another car was backing it in and like squishing them between the
Oh,
car. And I
shit.
heard him scream, and it sounded like that. He
Just-
was okay, but
Wow.
that's what it sounded like.
Very cool.
Like it
Yeah.
became breathy and
Wow.
high pitched and horrifying.
Like genuinely,
So-
like the last kind of thought kind of situation.
Yeah, like that scream was done so well that it throws me back to an old memory that I have. That I'm like, that's an
You
I'm
got
gonna
it.
die scream.
You
Yeah.
You fucking maniac! What did you do to that person?
Yeah, to make them scream like that.
scream like that.
Because I hear, like I said, I watch a lot of horror movies, and I very, very rarely hear screams that make me feel chilled and uncomfortable. And that scream was done really well. Weird thing to call out, but that's another thing I have to give a prop to.
All the
sure.
more marks for this. This is a grade A horror movie for me. Like
Yeah.
this ticks all the boxes.
It's high level.
It's right up there with The Witch. You don't find good horror movies. Okay, that's just the staple of them. They're all cheesy or campy or overblown. This one, it falls in the perfect little niche.
And that's why us horror fans are so angry all the time.
Yeah, especially considering that one of the best horror movies you've seen in a while just was a little too short, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but at the same time, it's like, you know, we can obviously say that in the post hoc, but who knows what cut in order for them to be able to be like, no, it's just better off this way,
Right.
you know? Just leave it to the imagination, especially considering the fact that they, again, to re-kudos them again for the monster, you know, like they went against what is the norm in relation to their people, like the norm of being like, don't show the monster or let the monster kind of play inside of the heads of the people, right? Like in this one, they had the bravery to showcase the monster the entire time.
Yep.
It worked out really well, and I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. It was awesome. I would say go watch it, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and shit, I don't know. have sympathy for people who have to have survivor's guilt like that because,
Absolutely.
man, like,
They can't go camping.
no, I mean, not only that, but
It's a little known fact about survivor's guilt.
it automatically makes the woods just no go.
It's well, so if we're wrapping up,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, because we talked about it before the podcast, give a big shout out to the crazy person that's watching all of our content.
Yeah, if it's because it has
We
to be
see you.
between 1 or 2 people. We see the metrics and we see the fact that you just can't get enough.
So we like you,
Yeah.
we appreciate you, or you too.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, as long as people enjoy it, and no, actually, even if people don't enjoy, we'll keep doing it.
Yeah, probably.
We'll do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, so
Right.
if there is anybody that does it, if the crazy person is out there and they're still listening right now, you know, maybe we do more of these next year.
Or maybe comment sometimes. It's so annoying seeing the fact that somebody watches a whole 2-hour video and then doesn't leave a comment. Be like, did you agree the whole way?
Just tell us it sucked. I don't care. That's fine. Just something.
We just want to connect with you.
Yeah, honestly. How can we be friends if you don't talk? Okay, and I guess with that, we leave it with a good day and a good night.
Good night.
Good night. That one was fun.